Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Business Narrative. As we promised, that we are dedicated to bringing real life heroes who are solving real life problems. And today we are joined by strategic growth leader and marketing and communication innovator. He is none other than David Campbell. David, thank you so much for your precious time.
Thank you very much.
The pleasure is all mine, David. So, looking ahead at 2026 or 2024, what is the one most brutal lesson you would love to give to business owners or entrepreneurs who are trying absolute best to scale, but unfortunately, they are not achieving the desired results?
One lesson would be patience and to make sure that you have guardrails as you do begin to scale. If you start going out and just start adding everything, hoping that it'll all come together and that sales will boom and that sales will catch up to expenses, you might find yourselves upside down at some point in time. In which case, if you don't have the right capital to back you during that period, then you're going to find yourself in trouble and along those lines. So usually I would say make sure that your cash flow is keeping up with your expense burn, and to make sure that you've got some guardrails in place so that if you've got to change course during that because of lack of access to capital or lack of sales growth along those lines, that you have a secondary plan in place.
From your previous answer, I came to know that companies they should have a backup plan. Like, why is it so crucial to have a backup plan for companies, and why entrepreneurs nowadays they always insist to stick to plan A, right? And why business development teams they lack to create a backup plan, like just plan B. If this particular thing will not going to work, I have to switch immediately to this.
Well, like the real world is what you think is going to happen isn't always what happens. And if you keep trying to force what you think should happen, if you try to force that into the marketplace doesn't have to abide by what you want. So if you can't see where the changes are going or what your assumptions are and how those in real time are being tested or are not finding to be totally 100%, then if you don't have a backup plan or a different ability to go in a different direction, then all you're going to do is continue to burn capital. I mean, how many startups have we seen where they have to keep going back to the same source because their plan didn't work out? No startup plan works out exactly the way you put it down, and if you keep trying to force that into there, then you'll end up finding up in some trouble. And you want to make sure that you don't have to keep going back to the same people who at some point in time will be leery of the promises of this time the plan will work.
So, when an entrepreneur is launching a brand, what should be their primary focus in initial time period?
It's all in the homework you do up front, the research that you have ahead of time. If you're launching a brand, do you understand the competitive landscape? Do you understand what your barrier to entry is? Do you understand how to scale up once you get that entry? The best ideas sometimes aren't profitable with the person that originated them. Sometimes it's the third or fourth person that bought them because the ability to build it from the beginning runs into problems. So again, make sure your research is there. Make sure you understand who your target audience is, how long, what that customer journey is before they'll accept that brand and they'll begin to buy into it so that you can be able to scale up as fast as you need to along those lines.
When entrepreneurs they are pivoting from one niche or one business to another, it's very difficult for them to stick to resilience and to have patience, right? And they have to make bold decisions. So, according to you, what are some habits like after following those habits, they can have resilience and patience in their personality?
Patience is a virtue because everyone wants to get there quickly. Um, and sometimes by doing that, you make shortcuts that don't make sense in there. So it is important to have that balance between that. Sometimes bold becomes desperate, and you have to make sure there's a difference between bold and desperate. And so the patience to look around the corner and see what's there um, is a great attribute to have, as opposed to saying, I'm going to make a bold decision. And again, it ends up being a desperate one that puts you in bigger trouble.
David, you always emphasize on one thing, and that is building emotional connection with your buyers, right? And according to a research by Harvard, 90% of buyers purchase that particular product when they feel emotional connection with that particular brand, right? So why it is so important in 2026 and how businesses can develop emotional connection with their buyers.
I think it's more important in 2026. If you look at right now of how people are spending their money, I read an article this week that talked about how fun has gotten very expensive. And it means, tickets to concerts, um, sports facilities, different things like that. Going out has become more expensive than ever. But people are doing it more. They're doing that. And why is that? Because they like the emotional connection of what it means for them. If you looked at practicality, benefits and features, um, paying $5,000 for a Taylor Swift concert doesn't make very practical sense. I can hear better music at home, streaming it, from that. But because I want to feel like I'm part of that, because I want to feel like I'm connected to it, then I become attached to the brand and become more willing to spend what it takes to be part of that. You look at, cars don't talk about, the mechanics of it. They don't talk about the engines. They don't talk about things like that. They talk about how you feel when you're in that car. What does it make you do? How does it make you feel as a person? Um, and so they attach that to that emotional part. We don't buy a Rolex because it's just a good timekeeper. We buy it because it's a status symbol. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel important.
You have given us such a beautiful example of Rolex, and according to my research, Rolex only advertise in sports and luxury magazines to reach specific premium demographics, right? So, according to this research, my question is like how newly launched startup can effectively identify and target their ideal customers without building a reputation in the market.
You can highly target who your audience is. Before, if you wanted to reach a broad audience, you would have to put ads in a newspaper and on TV and billboards. And as a famous quote by the former CMO of Procter and Gamble, I know that 50% of my advertising is wasted. I just don't know which 50%. And so today we can highly target people. We can go through and look and see who are potential buyers, who's doing research and what have you. So to make your money go the furthest and you get your highest ROI on your marketing dollars, it's really important to go through there and figure out who's more likely to be your customer from there, rather than just trying to hit everybody. Rolex is a specific brand. They cater to a certain group. Not everyone can afford a Rolex. Not everyone is going to go out and buy one. So they understand that customer journey of who is most likely to do that. What type person is going to be attracted to it? What emotional spots do I need to hit on those ads? And so how do I connect with them on that? So I get them not only are they the target customer, but when is it that they are most likely to be looking? And so I think, doing that really improves the ROI on your marketing dollars when you are zoned in on that.
Like from last couple of years until now 2026, we have seen that many big brands they are hiring influencers with like huge number of followers, right? But still brands they are not able to achieve their sales, right? So according to you, what is the main reason behind it?
Again, are they the right followers? Are they the type of followers that connect emotionally to my brand? Um, we recently worked with a company that um, was in the fitness arena. And so their spokespeople were not, their influencers that they were going to connect with weren't necessarily the same people that their audience was going to identify with. So, if I get Taylor Swift to promote my product, but yet it's for senior housing, you know, those people are looking at senior housing aren't connecting with Taylor Swift. So, why do I waste all that money on something that's a highly influential person, but not connected to the audience that I'm working with?
That is a very crucial point. So now I want to present a case study. A famous noodle brand in India. They always claim this that their noodle can be cooked in 2 minutes, but trust me, it was never cooked in 2 minutes. So, but they always promote, or they always market this point like as an USP, right? As a unique selling point. But it was a fake promise. It was a false claim, right? But still, their sales were not dropped. Why?
I think a lot of it has to do with just, again, the emotional ties that someone has with that. If it's a brand that makes that emotional tie with me, how important is a 2 minute noodle versus a 4 minute noodle? Who's to say? But if it's something that I connect with and feel important to, then can do that. I mean, um, you know, how many people get frustrated with their Apple products? You end up with issues such as, the batteries were found to be going down faster than they should have. And some of it was even, found to be done by Apple itself. But people are loyal and they come back to Apple time after time because they feel like an emotional connection to that, either through a status part or because they feel like they're already vested, and so they're willing to overlook, um, in their mind, minor issues, as long as they still get that same desired emotional output.
So, lastly, do let me know how emotional storytelling can help you to build your brand reputation globally and to get new customers.
Emotional connection is more of a subtle process. It's not you don't go out to people and tell them they're being emotionally connected. But what happens is you begin to talk to them about themselves, and you begin to bring up things that they like and not necessarily um, you know talk about the product. And eventually, once you get around to talk about the product, they are already sort of connected to the most important attributes of how that product makes them feel. You don't start off with, um, this car is going to be your best friend, but you talk about how you feel in a car and what you want out of a vehicle and how it makes you feel when you're going down the road and the windows are down and the wind's blowing in your hair and you have that performance and the wheels are hugging tight and you can just sort of let loose and be free, before I ever even tell you about the car. So, in today's world, it's important to make that connection and to find ways to do that. And then basically what you're doing is you're identifying the problem. Maybe it's not even a problem that they thought they had, but you identify them, help them come to realize and acknowledge that I want some of that. And then you come back behind it and say, and by the way, we have the solution.
So, before we wrap up, one message you want to give to all those people who want to scale their businesses and they want to start their businesses, but unfortunately, they are not taking that first step. From your side, one message.
Do the upfront homework, make sure the research is there. Um, Continue to refine your message, continue to reach out to your target audience and find out what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And do pivot when you need to along those lines. But don't jump off the cliff until you know where your parachute is.
Thank you so much, Devin, for your precious time. And I hope all the viewers will going to love the podcast. If you love the podcast, do subscribe the channel, press the bell icon, and help us to grow more. We will be going to meet you in another exciting episode. Till then, keep daring, keep listening, and keep achieving your goals.